Hey there guys, gals, and non-binary pals, GM Potter here, and today we will be going over We Are The Wildcats by Siobhan Vivian. So, a massive spoiler warning for this one because I don't feel like I can talk about this book without getting into spoilers, without getting into giveaways for the rest of the story. So, massive spoiler warning. If you haven't read it, you might want to skip this one, or if you're planning on reading it. I also need to put a content warning on this one. There was not a content warning on the book, which I'm very upset about because I found the book deeply upsetting. It does deal with grooming part of the coach character. So the general idea of the book is that it is it's the tryouts for the girls field hockey team have just ended. Tomorrow's the first game of the season, and so they're having a big sleepover to get themselves psyched up. They call it the psych up, and get themselves psyched up and ready for the big game tomorrow. And it's supposed to be about sisterhood and camaraderie, and because of the actions of their coach and his creepy behavior, frankly, instead of doing what they normally do, which is pass out their jerseys and light sparklers and then go back to bed and wake up for the game ready, and the coach denies them their jerseys and says, well, you have to earn them tonight, which of course the girls take to mean that they need to go do some pranks, or they need to go be a little wild, which I don't think adults in an authority position should be encouraging. Also, he does text two of the characters, two of them. One of them is a senior in the start of the book, so he's been texting her since she was a freshman, and that is not okay. He's texting her very flirty texts, a lot of emojis with like the tongue out smiley face emoji, and like it's not appropriate. He also makes comments in these texts about how she's not going to be his student that much longer. And she's like, well, what does that mean? And he's just kind of like, oh, well, you'll have to wait and see. And it's very uncomfortable. It made me physically feel ill reading some parts of it. And then the other girl that he's trying to groom, he's unsuccessful in it, is an incoming freshman, and she's willing to go along with it until she sees that he's not the good guy, and then she goes away from that. Massive spoiler warning. We're gonna have no restraint on spoilers, and also that content warning for grooming. So let's get into it. So We Are The Wildcats is written by Siobhan Vivian. It came out in March of 2020. It has a Goodreads rating of 3.54. I very strongly disagree with this. I feel like because of the content, as well as some of the writing stylistic choices that are made, and just the writing overall, I can't give it a good rating. I've got to give it 1 star. Like, I feel bad because authors pour their heart and soul into their work, but this is it's not good. It's not good writing, it's not good storytelling. The characters all feel kind of like copies of each other. And when I say that, I mean the book is told from 6 different perspectives. There's 6 main girls. There's Lucy, Grace, Allie, Mel, Phoebe, and Kirsten. And it doesn't go like Lucy, Grace, Allie, Mel, Phoebe, Kirsten, Lucy, Grace, Allie, Mel, Phoebe, Kirsten. It takes them each in order, and then it like flips around and jumps from them from one to the other to the other to the other over the chapters, and it's very disorienting. The characters do not feel different enough to warrant that, with the exception of there's some tried and true phrases that the author uses. Like, she uses the phrase "and yet" with one character, and she uses there's a couple pet phrases that she uses to distinguish each character, but it's not enough for me. Getting into the characters themselves, we have Lucy, who is the incoming freshman. She's new to the varsity team. She's an incoming freshman. She doesn't know anything about what's going on. She's kind of new to town. She's our fish out of water. Then we have Grace, who is a sophomore. She was on the JV team last year. She's the poor one. She dyes her hair blue, which is the Wildcat signature color, which they're all so into teamwork, but yet they're wearing purple on the cover and not blue. Like, I get that the cover is blue, and so it's a contrast, but it just seemed like an odd direction to go for the cover art. She dyes her hair blue as a show of team spirit. She was not really a part of the JV girls team. She was on the team, but she wasn't a part of the team. They kind of ostracized her. And so she's hoping to come into this and be part of the team and to be welcomed. We have Allie, who is the token Asian character. She and Lucy are the only characters of color in the whole book. Lucy is, I believe, Colombian, and Allie is Korean. And Allie puts her team ahead of her family to the point where she misses her nephew's first birthday, which, if you know anything about Korean culture regarding birthdays, it's a very big thing for him. And she decides not to go. It's one of the few times her whole family gets together. And she makes the choice not to be there so that she can go to not even a real game, it's a scrimmage. Which just, it feels like her parents aren't there. Like, they're written as very loving and very supportive of her, but I don't know any parents who would let you miss out on a big family thing before the school year even officially comes to a start for a scrimmage. I grew up in football land. I'm from Texas. Football is king here. And I don't even know any football players whose parents would have been like, no, you're not going to your cousin's quinceañera because you have a scrimmage. Oh, well, that's fine. Like, I don't even know anybody whose parents would let them do that. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Then we have Mel, who is the team captain. She's a senior. She's the one that Coach has been grooming the hardest. He's kind of been grooming all of them. But she's the one he's gone after the hardest. He's the one that makes not promises, but makes her think he's making promises to what they're going to be after she graduates. She is rich. She is the rich character. She lives in a mansion with a pool. She's the one at whose house the slumber party is. Her parents get caterers for dinner and for breakfast. Her parents are also very loving, very aware of what's going on. They're very into things. They're definitely a safe space. And then we have Phoebe, who, a little bit of backstory that the book keeps going into is that last season they lost because it's blamed on two people. Allie, who is the goalie, and Phoebe, who tore her ACL because she pushed herself too hard. Which we find out, spoiler, was at the behest of the coach. The coach told her to push herself too hard, and she went from an ACL sprain to an ACL tear. She actually tears her ACL a second time during this night of hijinks, which, it's weird. She tears her ACL and then she's just walking around I was in the band, but we had a couple ACL tears in marching band, and I don't know, and I was in the same class with the football players. I don't know anybody who's getting up and walking around and just, oh, I'll just take an Advil and it'll be fine after they tear their ACL, especially for a second time. There's a football player in my class who sprained and tore and then retore his ACL. He said the second time was worse. So, it wasn't very believable. To me, that part. And then we have Kirsten, who was pulled up from the JV team when Phoebe first sprained her ACL. She's the one they blame the most for losing the game. They blame Allie because she let the final shot get past her. She let the final shot get past her because an opposing teammate made some racist gestures at her. She told her coach, and the coach is like, well, that's fine. Don't worry about it. And blames her for the bad sportsmanship of another player, which, had he brought up to the refs would have done something, because that is unsportsmanlike behavior. This is a high school game. Like it or not, this is high school. It's not professional field hockey. It's not even in Olympic field hockey, they wouldn't let someone get away with what this other girl did to her. It's disgusting. One of the characters, I believe it's Kirsten, her mother is used to dealing with the JV coaches, who are much nicer, much friendlier than the varsity coach. She is belittled and berated by the coach. He actually throws a water bottle at her hard enough to injure her face, and she writes it off as, oh, it's fine, and like actually gets mad at her mother when her mother goes and tries to get the coach fired, which somehow the coach doesn't get fired, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, that's like, I you throw something at a student, you touch a student, you are fired, is the way it works, at least in the school district I went to. Maybe that's privilege speaking, but like, if a parent complains that you hurt their child and the kid is walking around with a big bruise and a cut on their face as evidence, yeah, you're getting fired. Or at least non-renewed. Teachers don't always get fired. Sometimes they get non-renewed, which is they get put on an administrative leave until the end of their contract, and then they just aren't offered a new contract, and sometimes they're blacklisted, so it's a little different. The coach is described as young and handsome. I thought he was a sadistic, skeevy asshole. Like, he's an asshole, he's slimy, he's skeevy. Every time his character talked, usually through flashbacks, but a couple live instances, I just felt my stomach turn sour. Like, it was not good talking to him. I was texting two people while I was reading this. I'm gonna pull up those texts and go over those, because, like, it's just not okay. So, I told a friend of mine that it's poorly written, it's too broad to be interesting, in that she's trying very hard to make it an everyman tale of, like, high school girls against the man, but it's also too specific to be relatable. Like, I was in the band, I wasn't a jock, and I can't relate to these girls at all. Like, I can't find a common, like, I've read young adult novels that feature, like, hockey teams and football and girls soccer teams and things like that, boys football teams, and I'm able to relate the camaraderie that I felt in band, in the group I was in, to what's going on in the story. And, like, it's culty. Like, it's a cult that the coach has crafted for himself. So it's too specific to be relatable, and at the same time the book is kind of forgettable, which is kind of a sin in the book world. Like, you want to be a memorable book. The only thing I really remember, I finished the book 2 days ago, and the thing that sticks out in my mind the most is that the coach was skeevy and the ending sucked. That's what I told her. And then when I finished the book, I texted my partner. The ending is essentially they get revenge on their coach by giving him the silent treatment, and then when he complains about getting the silent treatment, they're like, well, we're firing you, you're not our coach anymore. And it's like, you're 15. Like, this is the incoming freshman character, Lucy, who says this. And it's like, you are 15, you cannot do that. He is still very much your coach. You need to go to an adult. And I texted him, I'm like, y'all are 15, you can't fire no one, tell your parents, tell a goddamned adult. Sorry for the language, but, like, I have in my notes in several places that it's like, tell an adult. Just tell an adult. Like, this is happening, it's inappropriate. You know it's inappropriate. The girls feel that it's inappropriate, but they're too, at the same time, they just dismiss it and say, oh, well, it's flattering because he's a grown-up. And it's like, yeah, that's exactly why you need to tell an adult. He's in a position of power and authority over you. He should not be flirting with you. There is a reason why grown-ass men go after little girls and grown-ass women go after little boys. It's because they can't make it with people in their own age. They are not, like, people in their own age have enough experience to see through it and say, no, this is not appropriate, you are possessive, you are demeaning, you are demanding, you are awful and toxic, and I'm not going to put up with it. Like, there's a reason their 30-something-year-old coach isn't going after 30-something-year-old women. There's a reason he's going after 15-year-old girls who are at least half his age when he starts going after them. There is a reason. It's just skeevy, and at no point does anyone say, hey, let's tell an adult. Like, they all have these parents who are a safe, welcoming space that it would be very easy to say, hey, mom, dad, this is going on, is this okay? Like, and at no point is there any plans to tell an adult. And the fact that it's written that way, yes, it might be realistic, but the author is also an adult. She knows what she's writing, and she chose to write it that way and to not have them tell an adult. And I think the book is irresponsible in that way. It's designed for the audience of the book is the same age as the girls in the book who are being groomed. And it's disgusting because it's the author's responsibility to have at least one of them say, "Hey, let's tell an adult. Let's tell the athletic director. Let's tell your mom. Let's tell my uncle. Let's tell my grandmother, my older brother." Like some adult you can trust. Like that's always the phrase I heard growing up. And it's always tell an adult you can trust. That is never brought up as an option. Even when the other girls who aren't being groomed bring up that, hey, he's grooming you, that's why you're still on his side, it's never brought up that they should report this. And that's irresponsible of the author. It's irresponsible of the author, and for the irresponsibility as well as the subject matter, and then just the bad writing, this book gets 1 star from me. It's mostly the irresponsibility and the bad writing, but it's so much worse than I can give it credit for. Should you read this? I would say no. It's a 1-star book, and that's because I don't do 0 stars. If I believed in giving something 0 stars, I would give this book 0 stars. I would give this book negative stars. I don't believe in banning books, but I believe at the same time the author should have the responsibility, should be responsible enough to take responsibility for what they are writing and to whom they are writing it. Like, this book is written for children. Like, they are not adults. It is a young adult book. That means it's written for children. And it is your responsibility as an adult writing for children to let them know what to do. A good example of this done well with triggering subject matter and things is The Perks of Being a Wallflower, because he does tell an adult. He tells his friends and he gets help, and it's done very well. This is not done well. This is disgusting, and it made me physically ill to read it. So, have you read We Are The Wildcats? Are you gonna read it? Let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It feels weird to do self-promo on this one, but April 3rd, that's a Sunday, in Dallas at the big Half Price Books flagship store, I will be doing a book signing for my 2 books from 1 to 3 p.m. Come on by and see me if you're in town or if you plan to be in town. I'd love to see you. I'd love to chat, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!